Hello everyone and welcome back to Kicking It with Kenny. Welcome back. As you can see, I have been away from YouTube for far too long, and I am now ready to sit and talk with you guys about my experience going through postpartum depression in the middle of a pandemic. As many of you know, my husband and I, we welcomed our baby boy in April of 2020, and shortly after that, I would say that is when my episode of postpartum depression began. First, it started off with the baby blues, and that was a period of time for me that was a little confusing. I would literally be sitting at home with my husband and my child and experiencing so much joy, but also experiencing a bit of pain and sorrow and feeling somber and melancholy. At this time, we were in our apartment in Belleville, and it was just us. We came home the height of the pandemic. No one was really able to even be around us. We didn't, of course, have the vaccine. We didn't really know who had it, who didn't. So at that time, we chose to just keep it, between us. We stayed at home. We were at home a lot. It was just by ourselves. So for me, it became really lonely because I had imagined, I really just had imagined the amount of support that I would get. We had an amazing baby shower. We have an amazing village that I know would have been there had the circumstances been different. But for me, it wasn't, and it wasn't anyone's fault but Mrs. Corona, and unfortunately, we're still dealing with that today. And I wanted to make this video because I know there are a lot of women and families who are going to welcome a child, and just some things that you want to look out for, some things that you might want to prepare yourself for going into this season of postpartum, which really just means after you have your child. And I did have my husband with me, but there are things that I went through that we both weren't aware of how to even identify what going through postpartum depression or even the baby blues would look like. When I first started having symptoms of baby blues, we would be watching something funny and I would just end up crying. Or, he would be asleep, the baby would be sleeping, I'm just up. I had no, my internal clock was off. I would sleep during the day and be up, during the night, and I was just out of it. And I think the turning point for me was when we moved from our apartment that we were in to our current apartment now. I felt alone. I felt like we had nobody, and it was just the three of us, me, my husband, and our new baby boy. And there are moments that I'm looking back now on that I really just don't even remember because of how deep and dark of a depression that I was in. I was always worrying about if my child was okay. And there are moments, of parenting and being a first-time parent and a new mother where you will worry. But for me, the worry was more of a fear and anxiety, and it was all the time. It was weighing on me so heavy. I was always wondering if he was breathing, if he was okay, if he would be diagnosed with this or that, and it was just like, it was a heavy weight on my shoulders. On top of that, I was irritable, I was moody, I was always anxious, as I mentioned, and I could not recognize myself. There were times where I would lash out on my husband, and him being the man that he is, he just, was the punching bag for a very long time. And I do think that even with mothers going through a part of postpartum depression, I think that it can affect husbands or partners or family members. And I think that it's so important to take classes to talk about, for people who have experienced postpartum depression, to talk about it, because sometimes it can be a taboo subject where nobody wants to bring it up. But unfortunately, people go through postpartum depression more than you think, more than you realize. And for me, going to those doctor's appointments and they have you, it's like 5 to 7 questions that really, it's a blanket kind of statement. They don't ask really into detail, and you could just sit there and lie. For me, I was lying. I had thoughts of, suicide. I had thoughts of dark thoughts that were just not like me. And due to being in a pandemic, due to being socially isolated, due to being, just quarantined for your health and the safety of your baby, I think that definitely played a part. Because had we been able to have people over, I'm sure they would have recognized the struggle that both my husband and myself were going through, because I was going through postpartum depression. And sometimes for me, when I experience something traumatic, especially looking at how I dealt with it as a child, it manifests itself as memory loss. So there are some things that I'm going through even now, or not going through as far as, the depression, but reminiscing and remembering, and some of those thoughts bring new feelings. And it's really hard to reminisce on, our child's first moments, because some of those moments I was incredibly depressed. And something magical happened, and I'm getting emotional about it because something magical happened like maybe 2 weeks ago. We were cleaning some of his clothes out, and I remember before we went in to have the baby, my mother came over and we washed clothes and we folded clothes and we organized clothes into this drawer that we had for him. And I went into the drawer and some of the blankets had not been used. And I pulled one out, and I'm sorry. So I pulled one of the blankets out, and it smelled like the newborn scent that we had originally used for him, which was Drept. I know Drept was bad. We didn't know that until we had the baby, but that's another story. That's another story. We don't use it now, so calm down. But I took a smell of the blanket, and it smelled like those first few weeks that we had him, and I started to remember. But it was good memories of us just sitting on the couch and holding our baby, just happy and excited that we finally get to have him in our arms. And I'm not sure if that is even a thing, but having that experience after a period of time of me feeling like I was going into another depression, of just remembering the things that I went through and the things that I felt like I missed in those first moments, and it was just special. But I guess the point of this video is really just to let those other mothers know who did have to go through having their child and being isolated and being by themselves, just letting them know that you guys are not alone. I experienced it, and I got through it. And some days it might not be easy. Some people may still be going through it. Postpartum depression can manifest itself up into a year, and I believe it can last even longer, just because if you don't go and get the help that you need. Since then, I have been seeing a therapist. I have been open and honest with my husband more. He has been more educated on the signs, because we do plan to have other children, and we just want to be prepared. I remember when we were thinking of weaning our son from breastfeeding. I think I went through another episode of that right after breastfeeding, and it was because of the postpartum depression that I wanted to wean. I felt I felt completely disconnected in a way that I never felt while feeding my son, and it wasn't enjoyable for me anymore. I felt as if I was resenting my own baby during the time that I was breastfeeding. And that is another symptom of postpartum depression, where you feel either, incredibly worried, or you just feel completely detached. And at that point, I was becoming detached and I just didn't know why. So after weaning, I went through another episode of being depressed in my journey of postpartum. And now that I look back on it, I can pinpoint each and every moment of the struggle. I can see where, I had those symptoms, and now I can talk about it. And now I can, take my endeavors to help educate women, men, and families on what postpartum depression looks like, how to help mothers cope, and how to support. I think sometimes we leave out the fathers because we're like, all you had to do was one thing, and the mom does this, and that. But ultimately, the father or partner is the ultimate support. You're not at home with them at night. You're not waking up in the middle of the night and supporting like the father would be, or the partner. So I think it is important to get that education across the board. And I'm grateful to be in the space that I'm in now. I took it upon myself to further my education and my knowledge, and chase a dream that I've always had. And I feel incredibly divinely drawn to becoming a doula, where I can support women in their birth, in their labor, in their delivery, and even after. And also extend that support to family members. So that is something that I have started and working to complete, and I'm very excited to do that. I just wanted to get this out there and share a little bit of my story. Majority of my channel is just me sharing my heart. I never intended on doing anything like this, but I've been drawn to it, and I'm going to continue to pursue it until God tells me that I'm done with it. And there's a lot more that I could say, a lot more that I want to say. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to email me, comment below. You can contact me on Instagram. I also have my Facebook tagged. And let's just have a conversation. Mommies, I'm here to support you. Fathers and partners, I'm here if you need any questions, if you have any questions, if you want to talk. And if you're going through it now, feel free to reach out. I'm here for whatever you need. And I thank you for listening to my story. I thank you for kicking it with me today. And I just want to say God bless you all, and I love you, and I thank you. Bye.